gentlemen, welcome to tonight's debate. My name is Mia and I am the chairman, and Ruby is the timekeeper. The adjudicator is Miss Banfield. The topic of this debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged. The affirmative team seated to my right is from St. Aloysius College. The negative team seated to my left is from St. Peter's Girls. The speaking time for this debate is 5 minutes. A warning bell will sound 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. A continuous bell may be rung 30 seconds after the speaking time, in which case the speaker must sit down immediately. Please ensure that your mobile phones and other electronic devices are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Lynelle Chung.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for this debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged. We define the topic as, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, a dumpster, an American term for a large metal container into which people put unwanted objects. This is also known as a skip in Australia. We define dumpster diving as per the Oxford Dictionary definition, also as an American term, meaning to search through dumpsters for edible food or items of value. Dumpsters should only contain general rubbish, not organic or recycling material. We define discourage as per the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition as to dissuade or attempt to dissuade from doing something. Therefore, we define the topic as that searching through large containers of general unwanted objects for edible food or items of value should be dissuaded. We, the affirmative team, would also like to add that for the context of this debate, we will only be referring to developed countries, as this is where the term dumpster diving originates from and where it is used. We, the affirmative team, undoubtedly believe that this statement is true. Today's first speaker, I will be talking to you about how there are better ways to solve waste than dumpster diving, and that it violates human dignity. Our second speaker, Jada, will be talking about how dumpster diving is an extreme breach of health and safety, and that it damages the economy. Our third speaker, Nicole, will rebut and sum up our team case. My first point is that there are better ways to solve food wastage than dumpster diving. One of the main reasons why people dumpster dive is as a political statement against food wastage. These people are called freegans, people who reject consumerism and seek to reduce waste, especially by retrieving and using discarded food. However, while dumpster diving may be a political statement, it isn't actually changing society's waste culture. Dumpster divers merely get rid of the end result, the trash, while the source still continues to run and produce waste. Companies will still continue to waste food no matter how many people sift through their rubbish. To solve the problem of food waste, we need to go straight to the top of the food chain and stop it there. This means educating the main food wasters, the big companies, to stop wasting food. And it's other big organisations, such as the World Wildlife Fund, who are making this change, teaching companies to donate food to hunger relief agencies such as Oz Harvest, Second Bite and Food Bank, instead of throwing it out. As evidence of this successful program, Woolworths reports that they donate the equivalent of 10,000 meals each week to South Australian food recovery groups in 1 year. In other words, big companies are what's needed to influence other big companies, and the freegans, well, they're just cleaning up the trash. Therefore, dumpster diving should be discouraged because its pointless attempts at being a political statement are making absolutely no change in food waste as a whole. If vegans are so passionate about this issue, they should instead support big organisations who will actually make a difference. It's simple logic that to eradicate an issue, you need to stop the problem at the source, not clean up their mess. Now to my second point, that dumpster diving violates human dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people in this world who use things and throw them out because they don't want them anymore. Then there are people who go through this garbage and reuse these people's dirty waste. But doesn't this arrangement just seem wrong? Article 1 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that all beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Yet there are people who aren't exactly equal, who are less than, because they use, even eat the things unwanted by society. Jumping into a rubbish bin and digging through people's smelly waste degrades a person's dignity, as it is not something honourable to do. We are aware that many people dumpster dive because they are finding it hard to make ends meet, finding food in bins so they won't go hungry. But this isn't something we should be encouraging. Underprivileged people in society are already seen as less than, and if we encourage them to live on the richer people's waste, we are encouraging the stigma to stick instead of working to change it. We should instead be encouraging these struggling individuals to go to hunger relief agencies, as it is just more dignified to receive clean food from people who care, rather than scrounging through a dumpster for food scraps. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we the affirmative team undeniably believe that dumpster diving should be discouraged. Its sentiment in changing society's waste culture is foolish, and instead we should be encouraging companies to stop wasting food in the first place. Every human deserves dignity, yet scrounging through a bin of society's rejected waste is disgusting and dehumanising. We should discourage dumpster diving because we should instead encourage better means which will eradicate food waste and close the societal gap. Thank you.
I call upon the first negative speaker, Charlie Fischler. Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charlie and I'm the first speaker for the negative team. As you've heard, the topic for tonight's debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged, and we, the negative team, strongly disagree with the statement. We agree with the definition presented by the affirmative team. However, we would just like to point out that we are only talking about legal places where dumpster diving is allowed. Tonight, as the first speaker for the negative team, I will be talking about how places where dumpster diving is legal, people have the freedom of choice and should not be discouraged to do so. I will also be talking about how some people are dependent on dumpster diving as a form of employment and lifestyle. Our second speaker, Chi-Chi, will be discussing how dumpster diving can reduce food wastage and how instead of discouraging dumpster diving, we should be educating those who do so safely. Finally, our third speaker, Charlotte, will sum up our team's case and provide some rebuttals to the points brought up by the affirmative speakers. Before I begin, let me first provide some rebuttal points brought up by the opposing team. The first speaker from the affirmative team said that there are better ways to use waste than to make a difference. However, the reality is there's still lots of items in the dumpster that are perfectly fine. This hasn't yet reached achievement, and dumpster diving has turning trash into treasure. So why should we be discouraging them? The first speaker also tried to tell you that dumpster diving will affect one's dignity. However, what is wrong with digging through waste if it's your choice and completely comfortable with it? This also relates to freedom of choice, which I will now talk about in my speech. To my first point, that dumpster diving is not illegal in some places. Here they have the freedom of choice to not be discouraged against and to dumpster dive. It is your choice what you want to have for dinner. It's your choice to spare $1 to the person busking at your local supermarket, and it's your choice to buy almond milk, full cream milk, low-fat milk, or soy milk. So why can't it be someone's choice to dumpster dive without being discouraged?
By definition, freedom of choice is an individual's opportunity and autonomy to perform an action selected from at least two available options, unconstrained by external parties. By impassively saying that dumpster diving should be discouraged is discrimination to people that need to dumpster dive in order to survive and those resourceful individuals that find this an enjoyable pastime. It's like discouraging someone from studying a certain subject at school. It's just insensitive to a large extent and irrational. Like other extreme sports such as bungee jumping, mountain biking, sand skiing, etc., are no different from dumpster diving. So people should have the need to have freedom of choice of dumpster diving without discouragement or discrimination. Now to my second point. How many people make a living off of dumpster diving and are completely dependent on it because of things that can be found in them like CDs, DVDs, hard drives, inappropriately labelled cosmetic products, and fruits and vegetables that don't make the beauty cut. Adelaide's advertiser created a video into why people dumpster dive. It backed up the issue of the food wastage that our second speaker, Chi-Chi, will later talk about, and said that people such as the homeless, unemployed, pensioners, low-income families and university students dumpster dive in large bins outside supermarkets and shopping centres because they rely on the free food and other goods. Anything these people can't use themselves can be sold to others. We, the negative team, are not encouraging this, but it's simply what happens. So dumpster diving should not be discouraged if it keeps people off the streets and puts food on their tables. Here's another example of how people need dumpster diving to survive. Jim and Alex Hamilton are brothers from the United States of America, and they run a YouTube channel called The Fortune Finders, a YouTube channel where they dig into trash to find valuable goods. Although they don't fit the categories of homeless, unemployed, pensioners, low-income families, and university students, they still survive off the dumpster diving lifestyle. They rely on finding interesting and obscure objects in their dives for viewers to keep coming back to watch their videos. It is their job. This is how they keep themselves in a home, and this is how they put food on their table. The discouragement of dumpster diving would be very injurious on anyone that is dependent on dumpster diving because they need the useful products to survive. In conclusion, dumpster diving should not be discouraged because it's one's choice to do so, and many people in our communities rely on such activity for food, cosmetic products, valuable goods such as USBs and cans. Thank you.
I call upon the second affirmative speaker, Jada Silvestrino.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged. We as the affirmative team undoubtedly believe this statement is true. Our first speaker, Linnell, has already explained why dumpster diving affects your human dignity as well as how there are better ways to deal with waste. Today, I will be talking about the health and safety of dumpster diving and how dumpster diving can actually negatively impact our economy. The first negative speaker has tried to tell you that people have the free will to dumpster dive if they want. We as the affirmative team aren't saying they shouldn't be allowed to dumpster dive or that they shouldn't have the free will, but rather discouraging them and informing them of the consequences and potential risks of such a filthy and dangerous activity, and how there are actually much safer alternatives to dumpster diving. We shouldn't be encouraging something that poses a potential threat to a person's health and safety. Furthermore, we should not be condemning dumpster diving and instead should be proactive to fix the big issue of homelessness so they are not relying on dumpster diving for food to survive. This first negative speaker has also tried to tell you that dumpster diving is necessary for underprivileged people to find food. This is wrong because our first speaker, Linnell, has already talked about how if we encourage underprivileged people to live on the richer people's waste, we are encouraging the stigma to stick instead of working to change it. By encouraging dumpster diving as a source for food, we are normalising homelessness and the social gap. Dumpster diving should not be discouraged because we should instead encourage the struggling individuals to go to hunger relief agencies where they can receive clean, safe food in a dignified way. My first point that I will be discussing is the health and safety of dumpster diving. As we all know, dumpsters are not clean and extremely unhygienic. In fact, they are contaminated with everything you wouldn't want on your food, clothes, or even yourself. But after all, dumpsters are places to dump waste. Imagine sourcing something out of a dumpster, knowing that it has potentially been surrounded by rats, bugs, feces, sharp objects such as knives, nails, or needles, drugs, chemicals, used female sanitary items, or even used contraceptives. The list just goes on and on. The last thing we would want is a repeat of finding needles in our fruits or vegetables, especially if these needles have been used for drugs. If a young mother, Jo Gilchrist, can become paralysed from borrowing a friend's makeup brush due to staph infection that, according to the US Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, a third of the population normally carries, I can only imagine how makeup and cosmetic items found in dumpsters can affect someone. Many infections and diseases, as well as health-related issues, can be caught by dumpster diving as well, much like skin diseases, respiratory allergies, stomach pain, diarrhea and vomiting, as well as cholera or even gastrointestinal disease. According to Carla Escow, public health consultant and professor in the Environmental Health Department at Concordia University College in Edmonton, Alberta, you can become especially ill during the summer, as even dumpsters themselves breed bacteria. Some of these diseases can go as far as becoming deadly if left untreated. In conclusion, we shouldn't be discouraging dumpster diving because it poses way too many potential risks. My second point is that dumpster diving can negatively impact our economy. As our first speaker, Linnell, has already mentioned, frugans are people who reject the consumerism of waste. According to the Mindful Word Journal organization, there is someone known as a secret frugan that has actually managed to save herself $12,000 on grocery bills and has donated around $92,000 worth of abandoned goods to charity, all through dumpster diving. Although this seems like a lot of money just from dumpster diving, if we were to assume the tax on the found foods was around 1%, that would remove around $30 from government coffers. $30 may not seem like a lot of money, but if even 1% of the US's population dumpster dives, the first world country is looking at a loss of $94 million in food taxes alone. So really, frugans might be thinking that they're saving consumerism and making a change for the better of our environment, but really, they are negatively affecting our economy majorly in the process. To sum up my argument, dumpster diving should be discouraged as it will negatively impact our economy. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, it all comes down to the simple fact that dumpster diving is nothing but filthy and dangerous, and that is something we should not be encouraging. If we are saying yes to dumpster diving, we are saying yes to deadly and contagious diseases, yes to allowing people to risk their lives, and saying yes to money loss in our economy. Thank you.
I call upon the second negative speaker, Chi Chi Zhao.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged. We as the negative team strongly believe that this statement is obviously false. Before I continue with my points, I will first point out the flaws in the opposition's argument. The first speaker from the affirmative team said that dumpster diving is causing people to lose their dignity. However, as our first speaker has already said, it is these people's choice to dumpster dive. Isn't discouraging their choice an undignified act? All humans have the right to make their own choices. Also, dumpster divings are helping to reduce waste and make the world a better place. Dumpster divings are helping make the world better by sacrificing their own time and energy to find reusable items. They are the people who are improving the world by the choices that they make, and there is no more dignified decision than this. The second speaker from the affirmative team also said that dumpster diving could pose possible risks to health. However, for some people, they use dumpster diving to survive, and without it they would have no way to find food. For these people, discouraging dumpster diving is like discouraging their only method of survival, giving them a death sentence. Instead of discouraging people for just trying to find food, shouldn't we be encouraging people to be donating food they don't need to the homeless? The government estimates that 5 million tonnes of food end up in landfill, so instead of blindly discouraging dumpster diving, we should be working on finding other options for finding food for them. If we discourage dumpster diving, people who dumpster dive for a living will have no other option for food. There is less harm to come from dumpster diving than discouraging it. Also, if dumpster diving is done correctly, it isn't a risk to health. Precautions like wearing gloves, boots, and checking use-by dates can all be done to keep dumpster divers safe. Instead of discouraging dumpster divers, we should be educating them on how to do it safely. Now to my points. Tonight, I will be speaking to you about how dumpster diving can reduce waste and how instead of discouraging dumpster diving, we should be educating those who do it on how to do it in a safe manner. My first point is that dumpster diving can help reduce the amount of food wastage in the world by being able to put perfectly good food to use. For example, bruised fruit or vegetables. According to ABC News, just in Australia, $8 billion worth of food is thrown out every single year. Food waste is estimated to cause Australia $20 billion each year. When you first hear of dumpster diving for food, your reaction might be one of disgust, as dumpsters are often associated with rotten and mouldy food. However, in reality, dumpsters are also places where ridiculously amounts of perfectly edible food get placed. The Huffington Post states that 40% of all food is put to waste, in our world where 1 in 10 people barely have enough to eat. Dumpster diving is the solution to this colossal problem, as it allows people to put the wasted food to a purpose. If there is perfectly good food being put to waste, why should we discourage utilising it? Dumpster diving doesn't only reduce food waste, but can also reduce other types of waste, such as clothing, electrical items, and other goods. For example, in Brisbane, there is a dumpster diving community called Food Not Bombs. The group visits a supermarket bin every Friday where they find an abundance of perfectly edible and usable fresh food, such as carrots, zucchinis, and loaves of bread. Dumpster divers aren't harming anyone or anything, so there is no reason for discouragement. Dumpster divers are people who are rescuing perfectly good food items from being wasted, greatly improving the environment as well. So why should we discourage them? My second point is that instead of discouraging dumpster diving, we should be educating those who do it on how to do it in a safe manner. As our first speaker has already stated, many people depend on dumpster diving to survive, and it is their choice. As I have said before, dumpster diving can have so many benefits to our environment and the individuals who do so. Instead of discouraging it, we should be educating people on how to do it in the correct way. For example, there are many websites that teach how to safely dumpster dive and the etiquette of doing so, such as checking local laws, wearing gloves, sturdy footwear, and being quiet as not to disturb residents. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, dumpster diving should definitely not be discouraged, as it can greatly reduce waste, and that instead we should be educating the correct way on how to dumpster dive. A well-known proverb states that one man's trash is another's treasure, and this is exactly the concept of dumpster diving. It doesn't harm anyone when it is done right, and it is improving the lives of people all around the world. So it is a ridiculous idea to discourage it. Thank you.
I now call upon the third affirmative speaker, Nicole Miller.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate tonight is that dumpster diving should be discouraged, with our keyword being discouraged. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is unquestionably true. Our second negative speaker, Chi-Chi, has tried to tell you that some of the food that has been thrown in dumpsters is not expired, or is it actually really clean enough to eat? This is untrue, because once something is thrown into a dumpster that is surrounded by filth and hazardous objects, it could potentially be contaminated with dangerous chemicals or even rat feces, which rats were the main cause of the plague. We need to remember that. According to Jim Chan, the manager of food safety at Toronto Public Health, these substances are not guaranteed to eliminate any toxins or chemicals that have been put on the fruit or the vegetables. We can't clean everything that is on the fruits and the vegetables. What if it's really, really dangerous? What if it soaks into our food? Do you really want to take the risk of eating something that could possibly kill you? The first speaker, Charlie, has tried to tell you that dumpster diving should not be discouraged because it is legal. This is wrong, because just because something is legal doesn't mean that you should do it. For example, smoking is legal, but it doesn't mean that we should do it, as it's extremely bad for our health. And in America, guns may be legal, but according to all the mass shootings that have happened, is it really good? Is it really safe? At the end of the day, laws are there as general guide, but it comes down to our own common sense and sensible judgment to make good decisions. And dumpster diving is not a good decision, as it is filthy, dehumanizing, and unsafe. Dumpster diving may be legal, but this does not mean that we should encourage dumpster diving. Again, Chi-Chi has tried to tell you that for some, dumpster diving is a last resort for food, and that we need to dumpster dive in order to survive. This is just unethical, as we should not be treating the homeless like animals that are forced to scrounge around filthy and dangerous dumpsters to find scraps of food. We should be protecting the homeless. We should be feeding the homeless. Why do we treat animals better than we treat the homeless? We see a cat on the side of the street, no food, we give it milk. We see a dog, we give it a treat. But we see a homeless person and we tell them, go into the dumpster and get food from there. At the end of the day, this is a societal issue that is really prevalent in our society, telling the homeless to go get food because they can do it, instead of actually finding alternatives to help them. We should not be normalizing this. Our first speaker, Charlie, again, has tried to say that we can find useful things in the dumpster. This is wrong, because anything that comes from a bin is dirty. There's a social stigma in our society that says that dumpsters are dirty. We all think that dumpsters are dirty. That's how we've been raised. But why are we now suddenly changing that? As soon as something is thrown in the bin,
It is unwanted, unclean, contaminated with other disgusting things in a filthy bin. There are countless parasites, germs, and diseases found in these common items. Yes, people take precautions when dumpster diving, but if you're talking about homeless people needing to survive, they aren't rich enough to pay for boots or gloves. As stated by Linnell, our first speaker Linnell has told us that dumpster diving Our first speaker, Linnell, has spoke to you about how dumpster diving violates the person who's dumpster diving's human dignity, stating jumping into a rubbish bin, into someone else's smelly waste.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Charlotte Adams.
Good evening, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight the topic for debate is that dumpster diving should be discouraged, and we, the negative team, really do believe that the act of dumpster diving should not be discouraged. Before I summarise the arguments presented by my team, I will rebut the points made by the opposition. The opposition had 4 main points tonight. The first speaker talked about food waste and dignity, while the second talked about health and economy. Firstly, I will discuss the flaws in the first affirmative speaker's case. The first affirmative speaker said that there are better ways to combat food wastage other than dumpster diving. This suggests that there is only one reason why people dumpster dive, when in fact, each individual has a completely different reason. She also said that we should be fixing food wastage differently to dumpster diving. But even though dumpster diving isn't the big solution to the huge problem of food wastage, it is a tiny piece of a big puzzle, and even though it has a small impact, it still has an impact. Therefore, we shouldn't discourage the small amount of freegan dumpster divers from doing what they feel is right. The first affirmative speaker also argued that dumpster diving damages human dignity. It was even described as disgusting. Now, no one should feel badly or judge someone dumpster diving to get by. However, you should feel great about people in society being judged by the way they get their food, let alone having it referred to as disgusting, because that is more dehumanising than dumpster diving. The second and third affirmative speaker both said that dumpster diving poses health risks. This is not always the case, because not all items in dumpsters are your typical idea of like dumpster trash, basically sloppy and rotten. In most cases, it's a packed loaf from Baker's Delight thrown out at the end of the day, or discontinued makeup from a warehouse that didn't fit beauty standards. These won't make you sick, and if people dumpster diving were educated on how to do it safely, as Chichi already mentioned, then this would not be a problem. The second affirmative speaker said that people are getting things unfairly, and they should be paying for stuff other than taking them from bins. Firstly, no company throws out stock that they intend to sell, because that is just throwing away money. Anything in the bin will no longer be sold and will not benefit the economy. and it isn't even property of that business anymore, because rubbish is referred to as abandoned property, meaning that the owner has given up ownership of it. Therefore, this argument can be considered invalid, because the people dumpster diving are not stealing items that they could be paying for, but instead claiming things that have been discarded by someone else. Now I will summarise my team's arguments. Charlie, our first speaker, made clear that we all have freedom of choice as to what to do with our lives, and if someone chooses to dumpster dive, that is their decision to make. She told you how discriminative it is to say that we should discourage someone from their way of survival or form of enjoyment, because do we really have the right to tell someone else how to live their life? As we've shown you tonight, dumpster diving doesn't directly harm anyone else. Therefore, since it is someone else's choice in what activities they do, we cannot discourage them from doing that. Charlie also had a strong point that some people need to go through rubbish to survive. With the cost of living only increasing, people do struggle to make ends meet. How can it be possibly bad for these people if they can walk around happily with a full stomach of food or to own items that they wouldn't have been able to previously afford, with no illegal theft? Finally, I'll summarise the points made by our second speaker, Chi-Chi. She began by giving you a startling fact. $8 billion of food is wasted in Australia every year. That is $8 billion. The majority of this ends up in dumpsters. So dumpster divers are reducing the amount of not only food, but of everything going to landfill. Restaurants and cafes do throw out perfectly good food. And if people are benefiting from this, how is it really a problem? After all, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Chi-Chi also said that instead of discouraging everyone from dumpster diving, we should instead encourage people to do it safely. Educating people on dumpster diving, or at least having these resources more widely available, would benefit them. Because as our team has talked about in this debate, there are so many benefits to dumpster diving. So the simple, avoidable safety concerns shouldn't be a barrier. Discouraging it altogether is lazy. So instead we should just educate people on how to do it right. So, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we should not be discouraging people from dumpster diving. This is clear because, as Charlie said, everyone has freedom of choice, and dumpster diving is a critical part of some people's survival. Chi-Chi reinforced this by reminding you that we shouldn't discourage this activity because it helps reduce food wastage, and safety concerns can be avoided by education. For these reasons, we strongly believe that dumpster diving